Thank you for your talk. Um, are there any questions?
Well, following up, good morning. Following up on Ting's talk yesterday at the retreat, it was amazing. Conan practice has many, it's like a kaleidoscope. It has many ways you can look at it. But yesterday, and maybe Judy, you can comment a little bit more on this, it became so apparent that Conan interviews have an ability to cut through all that we make in our mind, all these constructions we make in our mind. So um, is that one of the purposes of the Konan practice is really to get the student to put everything down and don't make it so complicated, just look at the question and answer the question. Does that make sense as a purpose for the Konan interview?
So, kong-ans practice has no ability to do anything. You have the ability to cut through. And kong-ans interviews provide a technique which encourages you to do that. So, the structure of the kong-ans interview is to encourage you to cut through all the bullshit that we make. That's the structure. So you go on and on and on and on and on and on, and the teacher just says, no, no, no. And then after a while, you realize, wait a minute, I don't have to go on and on and on and on like that. You're the one who has the ability, nobody else. So kong-ans interviews provide a tool to allow your ability to awaken, to allow you to awaken, to allow you to cut through. In some schools of Zen, in Rinzai Zen, um, you walk in, you can't, we're very nice. We say things like, how are you? How are you doing? How's your practice? Do you have any questions? We do that in our interviews as sort of our standard interviews. We'll do that. But a lot of Rinzai Zen teachers, when you walk in, if you say things like, oh, my boyfriend just left me and I feel so bad about that. And, my kid's flunking out in school and I just don't know what to do to help him. They'll just, they won't even respond, right? And then you go like, oh, that's not my life. That's just what I think my life is. My real life, my real awakened mind is someplace else, and this is the place to wake up that mind. So maybe we shouldn't be so nice, but yeah, so kong-ans practice, it's exactly that. You're thinking, 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 and sometimes I get into these email exchanges with people where they just try this answer and they try that answer, and you just can see the thinking wheels going round and round and round. And I see it in myself, when I run into a kong-ans that I haven't answered, which is most of them, and I try to answer it, for my own satisfaction, and then I'll check with Stan, and he'll do the other with me, and we might check with other teachers if there's another teacher around, if Daekwang Sim is visiting, if Dennis isn't off in Providence, and and a lot of the times I'm wrong, or at least I'm wrong according to this other person, and it's really interesting. So, how much of that wrong is this going round and round, thinking, 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 thinking? And how much is a direct perception, which happens to be different from this other person's direct perception? So, kong-ans practice allows us to attain this direct perceiving mind. This mind which is not caught in preconceptions and not caught in ideas and not caught in all this superstructure that we make. In particular, it's very interesting because everyone has to go through a phase in kong-ans practice where you so badly want the teacher to approve of you. You just so badly want the teacher to approve of you. It's built into us. We're social animals. We want to be approved of. That's, one of the 5 hindrances. There's food, sleep, sex, money, and it's translated as fame, but what it means is wanting to be liked. That's a big hindrance in our life. We want to be liked, right? And all kinds of terrible things happen because people want to be liked. And so that's a big hindrance in kong-ans practice. You walk in and you want the teacher to approve of you. And then at some point you don't care. That's not important. You're not doing this for the teacher's approval. You're doing this to wake up. And you and the teacher are working together. So yeah, so you're right. It's about not doing all this bullshit thinking, thinking that's attached to thoughts which are attached to other thoughts, which are attached to other thoughts, none of which is attached to reality. It's about getting absolutely in touch. But it's not the kong-ans that has this ability, and it's not kong-ans practice that has this ability. It's you that has this ability. And our only job as teachers is to help you wake up. That's it. And we can't do it for you. You got to do it yourself. So thank you very much for your question. Are there any other questions? Oh, I should mention, by the way, that I have an article. It's called something like 6 Ways of Looking at Kong-ans Practice, something like that. And it's in Buddha Dharma magazine from a few years ago, but it has not made it up online, so it's really hard to find. But it's out there somewhere. And it's all my thoughts about kong-ans practice, whatever, for what that's worth. So are there any other questions?
So, Judy, I have a question, and I'm not sure how quite to articulate it, but Max was talking about what he just said, and he said something yesterday during the question and answer about how people make things way too complicated. When there's something that's simple, people tend to overcomplicate it. And I was listening to you, and it's like, and this is where I'm having trouble articulating it. If we're seeing something clearly and we're trying to be very simple, but the person we're interacting with makes it more complicated, how do you deal with that? Because there is this superstructure, and it's like you may be trying to cut right to something, but the person you're talking to is making all of these constructions in their head. Does this make sense, what I'm saying? And how do you deal with that without coming across as an asshole, for instance?
Well, this is this how do you deal with question that people always have. And there are never answers to that kind of question. Because I don't know this person. I don't know this situation. I don't know their mind. I don't know your mind. So how can I answer a question like that? It always comes down to the same thing, which is being completely open to this person, just completely open. And there's an interesting thing there because we're always trying to manipulate each other. I mean, behind your question is another question. How can I manipulate this person? How can I manipulate this person so they agree with me? How can I manipulate this person so they see things the same way I do? How can I manipulate this person so that we're in the middle of a meeting and we're trying to make a decision? And how can I manipulate this person so that they decide that they want the same decision that I decide? And so much of our social interaction consists of trying to manipulate other people. Giving other people advice, telling other people, what to do or where to go or, whatever. Trying to come to some kind of agreement on things. And it's necessary, we have to agree on things. We have to come to decisions. You have all these very, complex alternative ways of coming to decisions. There's the dictator, there's the town meeting, there's the majority vote, There's the everyone has to agree vote. There's, the thing where you sit and you go round and 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 round until everyone agrees. I mean, there are all these different ways of coming to decisions because we're social and we come to decisions together and we have to do it. So to understand what this interaction is very important. Are you trying to convince this person? Are you trying to convince the people listening to both of you talk, like in a meeting? You know, are you trying to get them off your back? I mean, there are all kinds of to really see what is it exactly that we are trying to do in this situation, and then to have real respect for the other people, for the person who disagrees with us. I've mentioned this before. I'm in this group called Braver Angels, and it's an interesting group. It's nationwide, and I encourage people to get involved. What it does is it brings people together from all kinds of political spectrums, all kinds of ethnicities, all kinds of income distributions, and it gets people together to listen to each other and not come to common conclusions, but just hear each other out and not demonize each other. And I occasionally go to their big meetings. They have like panel discussions and stuff like that, and I don't find them that interesting because they tend to go on for a long time and it's over Zoom and there's only so much Zoom you can take. But I am in a one-on-one discussion with somebody, and most of the time, she's right wing and I'm left wing, and most of the time it's like, what one of us says, the other one can see why someone would say that. But the other day, she came out as she's not going to get the COVID vaccine, and I'm like, everybody get the COVID vaccine, and it was really interesting. Because she sees people like me as some kind of dupes of the system and causing all kinds of serious long range problems that we don't know what they are yet. And I see her as the person that's preventing me and my husband from going into restaurants, inside crowded restaurants without feeling threatened. And and so to have this conversation, and you're committed. The ground rules are you're not going to try to convince each other. You're just going to listen. And it's a really interesting thing. Now, of course, there's no decision coming out of that. I mean, I told her, if she lives in Vermont, I said, if you were my next door neighbor, you would not be allowed in my house. And she's, okay, I understand that. So it's not like, we have to come to some kind of decision, but that experience of just not manipulating somebody. I mean, we even manipulate our the people we love. Hey, what movie do you want to see? Immediately 2 people, 3 people, however many are involved, they're immediately manipulating each other. And to have this, situation where the ground rules are you're not going to manipulate each other. You're not going to try to convince each other. You're just going to listen and you're going to state. And then if there are any commonalities, you'll say what they are. And if there are any differences, you'll say what they are. And you let it sit like that. It's a very interesting experience. And I think in some ways that we can often apply those skills in our regular lives. That there's a lot of times when we try to convince other people and we try to make our points, making our points not in the sense of simply stating them, but in the sense of trying to convince someone. I think if we let go of that, a lot of really wonderful things can happen. That things can appear that don't always appear. And so my answer to your question is, don't try to change her. And you may think, oh, my mind is so clear. Maybe you're missing something. Maybe all this complicated mind she has, maybe she notices something that you don't notice. And that is not in your possibly oversimplified picture, right? So yeah, don't know. We teach don't know. Don't know means exactly don't know. None of us knows anything. And we all think we do. So your truth is partial. Her truth is partial. Her mind works one way. Your mind works another way. That's all. We have this saying in Buddhism, there are 84,000 expedient means. And what Max was talking about, this cutting through that Zen has, not every form of Buddhism has that. So everybody's different, and everybody hopefully can find a practice that fits. We're very lucky right now because the world is so connected that even if you live in rural Kansas, there's still many, many practices that you can be absorbed in, that you can choose from. And to find a practice that fits is what's really important. So yeah, just appreciate her for what she is. And hopefully she'll appreciate you for what you are. And listen, because you never know. Okay? Thank you. Oh, and the time is up. So can we stop recording?